I reached across the kitchen counter for my husband's phone. The delivery app had been giving me trouble all morning, and I needed to check if our grocery order was actually coming. My own phone was charging upstairs, and Marcus had left his right there next to the coffee maker before heading to the shower. The screen lit up with a single tap. That's when I saw it. A message notification from someone labeled only as a phone number. No name. Just 10 digits and 5 words that made my stomach drop. Last night was worth the risk. My hands started shaking. I stared at those words, reading them over and over, trying to make them mean something else. Something innocent. Something explainable. Before I could process what I was seeing, Marcus appeared in the doorway, dripping wet with a towel around his waist. He crossed the kitchen in 3 quick steps and took the phone from my hands. His movement was smooth, practiced like he'd done it before. He laughed, actually laughed, and said the messages were old. Just some spam thing. Nothing to worry about. But I had already seen the timestamp, 9 minutes ago. My name is Alina, and I had been married to Marcus for 11 years. 11 years of what I thought was partnership, trust, and building a life together. We met in college, married young, and spent a decade creating what looked like the perfect marriage from the outside. Standing in that kitchen, watching him dismiss what I'd just seen, I felt something shift inside me. The way he spoke was so gentle, so patient, like I was a child who needed calming down, like I was fragile and confused and couldn't understand what was right in front of my eyes. That tone wasn't new, I realized. Making me doubt myself had become familiar over the years. How many times had I questioned my own memory, my own perception, because he'd calmly explained away my concerns? How many times had I apologized for being suspicious or emotional? I heard myself doing it again. "I'm sorry," I said, even though my stomach was still in knots. I just saw the message and got worried. He kissed my forehead and told me I needed to relax. Then my smartwatch buzzed against my wrist. The same message preview appeared on the tiny screen. I tried to screenshot the message while Marcus was getting dressed. My thumb hit the button combination 3 times, but nothing happened. No screenshot saved. No confirmation. Just the message still glowing on his screen, mocking me. When I asked him about it later, he explained that he'd installed new security software on both our phones. Something about banking protection after his company had a data breach. It made sense when he said it. He worked in finance. Security mattered. I nodded like I believed him, like I wasn't already planning my next move. Because here's what Marcus didn't know about me. I learned to be careful. I learned to document things. I learned to trust my gut, even when everyone told me I was overreacting. That afternoon, while he was in a video meeting, I waited until I heard his voice explaining quarterly projections to his team. Then I grabbed my tablet from the bedroom, walked back to the kitchen, and took a photo of his phone screen using the tablet's camera. The message was still there, still time-stamped from this morning. And when I looked at the contact, it didn't have a name attached, just a number. I spent the next hour in our home office pretending to work on my freelance graphic design projects. Instead, I was running that phone number through every database I could access. Our phones were synced to the same cloud account, something Marcus had insisted on years ago for convenience. The number finally linked to a name in his synced contacts, Brielle. The name hit me like cold water. Brielle. He'd mentioned her before, always casually, always in passing, just a coworker. Someone from the marketing department. Nothing important. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the message history. Hearts. Inside jokes. Plans to meet. Messages sent at midnight. Messages sent during times when Marcus told me he was working late. Messages that made my skin crawl because they were intimate and familiar and wrong. I kept scrolling, holding my breath, until I found something that made me stop completely. A calendar invite. The title read, Conference Overnight. The date was next week. The location was a hotel downtown. And when I opened the full details, there were 2 attendees listed. Marcus and Brielle. A conference I'd never heard about until this very moment. That evening, Marcus came home with flowers. Red roses, my favorite, wrapped in brown paper from the expensive florist on Main Street. He kissed me and said he needed to tell me something. My heart stopped. This was it. He was going to confess. Finally, the truth was coming. The conference next week got canceled, he said, setting the flowers on the counter. Budget cuts. So I'll be home after all. Looks like you're stuck with me. He smiled like this was good news, like he was disappointed about work but happy to spend time with me. I smiled back and thanked him for the flowers. Then I waited until he went upstairs to change. I pulled out my laptop and opened our shared hotel rewards account. The one we used for vacation planning and occasional business trips. I typed in his email and the password we both knew. The account loaded slowly, showing our point balance and reservation history. The conference reservation wasn't canceled. It had been upgraded, changed from a standard room to a suite, modified yesterday, and the booking clearly listed 2 guests. The next morning, I was checking our joint bank account when I noticed something strange. A charge for $1.47 from a company I didn't recognize. The kind of small test charge that companies run before processing a larger payment. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold beside me. Test charges usually meant a new card or a new merchant. I refreshed the page, and that's when the second charge appeared. $2,300 to a luxury hotel chain. My chest tightened. I walked to the bedroom where Marcus was getting ready for work. I kept my voice casual, light. Hey, did you use our joint account for something? There's a hotel charge. He looked up from tying his tie, surprise crossing his face. Then concern. That's definitely fraud, he said immediately. I'll call the bank during lunch and get it sorted. Don't worry about it. His response was perfect. Concerned, but not panicked. Helpful, but not defensive. Exactly what an innocent person would say. I thanked him and went back to my coffee. But lunchtime came and went. Dinner passed. Bedtime arrived. He never called the bank. I couldn't sleep that night. While Marcus snored softly beside me, I sat in the darkness with my laptop, pulling up bank statements from the past 2 years. I organized everything by date, by amount, by merchant. I created a spreadsheet and started filling in the blanks. Every late night at the office. Every cold phase in our marriage where he seemed distant. Every argument where he accused me of being too needy or too suspicious. I matched them against the charges, the calendar entries, the message timestamps. They lined up perfectly. Like puzzle pieces I'd been ignoring for months, maybe longer. The business dinner that cost $400 for 2 people. The weekend he said he was at a conference but our credit card showed charges at a different hotel. The flowers he'd bought but never brought home. I felt sick. Not just about the affair, the betrayal went deeper than that. He'd been using our money, our joint account, the one I contributed to with every freelance project I completed, every client I landed, every late night I worked while he was supposedly doing the same. Then I found something that made everything worse. A second credit card, opened in my name, one I never applied for. The credit card statement showed a $15,000 balance. Maxed out. The charges went back 6 months, and they painted a clear picture. Jewelry, restaurants, weekend trips, designer clothes. All things Marcus had never bought for me. The billing address wasn't our home. It belonged to an apartment complex across town. When I cross-referenced the address with Brielle's social media profiles, the ones she thought were private but weren't, I found photos of her apartment building. The same building. The same address. Identity theft. He'd stolen my identity to fund his affair. I sat there in the dark, my laptop screen the only light, and I made a decision. I logged into the credit card website and froze the account. Just like that. 1 click. Account frozen pending fraud investigation. Then I set up alerts for every transaction attempt. I closed my laptop, got back into bed, and waited. 10 minutes later, Marcus's phone started buzzing on his nightstand. Once, twice, 3 times. Bank alerts, probably. Declined transaction notifications, fraud warnings. He grabbed his phone, squinting at the screen in the darkness. I pretended to sleep while my heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. The next morning, Marcus didn't say anything about the alerts. He acted completely normal. Made coffee, kissed me goodbye, told me to have a good day. I watched him leave and wondered how someone could lie so easily. But that evening, everything changed. He came home angry. Not sad, not guilty. Angry. He threw his briefcase on the couch and turned to me with eyes I'd never seen before. "What did you do to the credit card?" he demanded. I blinked, pretending confusion. "What credit card?" "Don't play stupid, Alina. The card." You froze it. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? I don't know what you're talking about, I said softly. We only have our joint checking and savings. He called me dramatic. Said I didn't understand money or finances, that I was sabotaging him out of paranoia. His voice got louder with each sentence, and I realized I was seeing the real Marcus for the first time. The mask had slipped. I stayed quiet, didn't argue, didn't defend myself, just nodded and apologized like always. And that night, after he fell asleep, I called my aunt. My Aunt Rachel picked up on the first ring, even though it was nearly midnight. She'd always been my person, the one who told me the truth, even when it hurt, the one who never judged me for staying or leaving or anything in between. I told her everything. The messages, the hotel, the credit card fraud, the lies. She listened without interrupting once, and when I finished, the line was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked a question that changed everything. Do you want closure or leverage? I knew the answer immediately. Closure was for people who needed to understand why. Leverage was for people who needed to survive what came next. I wanted leverage. Send me every document you have, she said. Bank statements, messages, photos, everything. I know someone who can help. My aunt worked in law, had connections I didn't understand but trusted completely. If she said she could help, she could help. I started uploading files to a secure folder while we were still on the phone. Every screenshot, every statement, every piece of evidence I'd collected. By morning, I had a plan. And for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. 2 days later, I found the storage unit. I'd been going through Marcus's work email, the one he thought I didn't have access to, when I found the monthly charge. Climate-controlled storage, paid automatically on the 15th of every month. I drove across town to the facility, my hands sweating on the steering wheel. The manager was friendly and helpful when I explained I needed to access my husband's unit. I showed her my ID and our marriage certificate, and she handed over a key without hesitation. Unit 247 was at the end of a long hallway. I unlocked the door and pulled it open, expecting boxes of old files or forgotten furniture. Instead, I found a fully furnished space, a chair, a mirror, shelves with clothes and shoes, framed photographs on a small table. The photographs showed Marcus and Brielle, on vacation, at restaurants, in bed together. But one photo stopped me cold. Brielle was wearing my grandmother's necklace, the antique sapphire pendant I'd inherited and lost 3 years ago. The necklace I'd reported stolen, the one insurance had paid $10,000 for. I took photos of everything in the storage unit with my tablet. Every piece of clothing, every photograph, every receipt left in jacket pockets. But especially that necklace. I zoomed in on the sapphires, the distinctive gold setting, the small engraving on the back that you could see in the photograph. Then I went home and found the insurance claim from 3 years ago. Marcus had helped me file it. He'd been so supportive, so understanding about how upset I was. He'd even called the insurance company himself to follow up on the claim. Now I understood why. He'd wanted to make sure they paid out quickly so he could give the necklace to his girlfriend without me looking for it anymore. He'd literally profited from stealing my inheritance. I sat at the kitchen table with the photos spread in front of me, and something clicked in my brain. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was fraud. Identity theft. Insurance fraud. Financial crimes that had consequences beyond divorce court. Marcus had been so careful to make me doubt myself. But he hadn't been careful enough with evidence, and that was going to be his biggest mistake. I stopped asking questions, stopped looking suspicious, stopped pulling away when Marcus touched me. Instead, I smiled, cooked his favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, complimented him when he came home from work. He relaxed almost immediately. Started staying later at the office again. Stopped checking his phone so carefully around me. The tension that had been building between us melted away because he thought I'd given up. Thought I'd believed his lies. Thought everything had blown over. What Marcus didn't know was that every day, I was backing up everything. Every message that came through. Every credit card statement. Every calendar entry. I had 3 separate cloud accounts now, all with complete copies of every piece of evidence. I also opened my own bank account, moved a little money each week from our joint account. Not enough for him to notice, but enough to build a safety net. I updated my resume, reached out to old clients, started building an exit plan that he couldn't see coming. At night, I lay beside him and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just cold determination. He'd taught me how to hide what I was really feeling. Now I was using that lesson against him. My aunt connected me with a lawyer. Her name was Diana, and she specialized in high-conflict divorce cases. We met at a coffee shop across town where nobody we knew would see us. Diana asked to see the prenuptial agreement, the one Marcus had insisted on before we got married. At the time, he'd said it was just smart planning, protection for both of us. I'd signed it without much thought because I was young and in love and trusted him completely. Now, Diana spread the document across the table between us, and we read through it together. Buried in the middle of page 7 was a clause about infidelity and financial misuse. Any evidence of cheating or financial misconduct would void the agreement entirely. Marcus had written it himself. His own lawyer had drafted the language, and in his arrogance, he'd created the exact weapon I needed to destroy his financial protection. "This is gold," Diana said, tapping the clause with one finger. "With everything you've shown me, the affair, the credit card fraud, the insurance fraud, this prenup is worthless. You'll get everything." I already had the proof. Now I had the plan. All I needed was the timing. The confirmation came from the last place I expected, Brielle herself. I was sitting in our home office one afternoon when I heard the shower running. Marcus's tablet was charging on the kitchen counter, and I knew I had maybe 10 minutes. I opened the messaging app and found Brielle's number. Then I typed a message pretending to be Marcus. "Can't wait for next weekend. Did you book the restaurant?" She replied within seconds. "Already done. And I got us the suite you wanted. Can't believe Alina still doesn't suspect anything. You said she was smarter than this." My hands shook as I kept typing, drawing out more information. She was careless, excited, confident. She even mocked me by name, calling me clueless and boring. Said Marcus deserved better. Said they deserved their happiness. Every message she sent was another nail in Marcus's coffin. And the best part? The tablet was set to automatically sync everything to the cloud. Every screenshot, every message, all backed up and time-stamped and undeniable. I deleted the conversation from the tablet before Marcus finished his shower, but the cloud kept its copies, and I had mine. The paperwork was drafted quietly over the next 3 weeks. Diana filed everything under seal to keep it confidential. Bank accounts were documented and flagged for fraud investigation. The insurance company was contacted about the necklace. Everything was lined up like dominoes, ready to fall. I chose the timing carefully. Marcus's parents were coming to visit. We'd planned a family dinner at our house. His parents, his brother, my Aunt Rachel. It was supposed to be a celebration, his father's birthday. A nice evening with the people who supposedly mattered most to Marcus. Perfect witnesses. I spent the morning cooking. His mother's favorite pot roast, homemade rolls, apple pie from scratch. I set the table with our wedding china, put flowers in the center, made everything look perfect. Marcus kept complimenting me, touching my shoulder as he walked by, telling me how lucky he was. His performance was flawless, but I'd seen behind the mask. I knew what he really was. The envelope sat in my purse in the coat closet, waiting. Inside were divorce papers, bank records, fraud documentation, insurance claims, photographs from the storage unit, and printed message transcripts. Everything organized with tabs and highlighted sections. Dinner was perfect. Marcus's father told stories about their family vacations when Marcus was young. His mother praised my cooking. His brother talked about his new job. Rachel caught my eye once and gave me the smallest nod. Marcus played the perfect husband, smiling, joking, pouring wine and making toasts, thanking everyone for coming. He reached over and squeezed my hand, telling everyone how grateful he was for his amazing wife. I watched him like he was a stranger, because that's what he was. I'd been married to a performance for 11 years, not a person. The real Marcus was someone I was only just beginning to understand. When dessert was finished and everyone was relaxed and happy, I stood up. "I have something for Marcus," I said, keeping my voice light. "A little surprise." I walked to the closet and pulled the envelope from my purse. Marcus's mother clapped her hands together, delighted. His father smiled. His brother leaned back in his chair with interest. They all thought this was something good. I walked back to the table and handed Marcus the envelope. "I think you should open this now," I said, in front of everyone. Marcus laughed and tore open the envelope, expecting a gift certificate or tickets to something, maybe a romantic getaway. His smile was huge as he pulled out the papers. Then he started reading. The smile froze. His face went pale. He flipped through pages faster and faster, and I watched the exact moment he realized what he was holding. Divorce papers, bank statements showing the fraudulent charges, printouts of messages between him and Brielle, photos from the storage unit. He tried to laugh it off. "This is some kind of joke, right? Alina, what?" "It's not a joke," I said calmly. "Everything in that envelope is real. The affair, the credit card fraud, the insurance fraud with my grandmother's necklace, all of it." His mother gasped. His father's face turned red. His brother just stared. Rachel sat back with her arms crossed, watching. "You're insane," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "These are fake. This is—" The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. I walked to the door and opened it. Brielle stood there in a pretty dress, holding a bottle of wine. Marcus had clearly invited her to meet his family, to start integrating her into his life. She looked past me and saw Marcus at the table, saw the papers spread out. Her smile disappeared. "You should probably read these too," I said to Brielle, gesturing to the documents on the table. She walked in slowly, confused, and picked up one of the bank statements. Her eyes scanned the numbers, the dates, the charges. I watched her face change as she started understanding. "These are from our joint account?" she asked Marcus, her voice rising. "You said you had your own money. You said—" "Brielle, it's not what it looks like," Marcus started, but she was flipping through more pages now, seeing the credit card opened in my name, the charges to hotels and restaurants and jewelry stores. She turned to him with her mouth open. "You were using stolen money?" she whispered. "You committed fraud?" "It's complicated," Marcus said desperately. "The credit card is in my name," I explained calmly. "He opened it without my permission and maxed it out buying things for you. The apartment you're living in? I'm paying for it. The necklace in that photo? He stole it from me and filed a fake insurance claim." Brielle looked at the photograph of herself wearing the sapphire necklace. Then at me. Then at Marcus. Her whole future was collapsing in real time, and I could see her trying to decide whether to fight or run. She chose run. She set the papers down and walked out without saying goodbye to anyone. The silence after Brielle left was suffocating. Marcus's parents sat frozen. His brother had his phone out, probably recording everything. Rachel still hadn't moved, but there was the smallest smile on her face. Marcus tried to salvage the situation. "This is a misunderstanding," he said to his parents. "Alina is confused about—" "I've already filed reports with the bank," I interrupted. "They're investigating the fraud. The insurance company is reopening their claim about the necklace. And your employer will be contacted about the misuse of company resources." "You can't do this," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "You'll destroy my career, my reputation, everything." "You did that yourself," I said. "I'm just making sure there are consequences." His father stood up without a word and left. His mother followed, pausing only to look at me with something like pity, but not for me. For her son. His brother stopped recording and said, "You're an idiot, Marcus," before walking out too. Rachel squeezed my shoulder and left last, giving me space. And then it was just Marcus and me in the wreckage of his lies. He begged, actually got on his knees and begged me to fix it, to take it back, to give him another chance. "I already fixed my life," I said. Then I blocked his number and went upstairs to pack. The court date arrived 6 weeks later. Diana was confident, and she had reason to be. Every piece of evidence was documented. Every fraud was proven. Every lie was exposed with timestamps and paper trails. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that the prenup should still hold because some clauses were independent. Diana pulled out the section Marcus himself had written about financial misconduct and read it aloud to the judge. The prenup collapsed completely. The judge ruled in my favor on every point. I kept the house, the savings accounts, half his retirement fund, and rights to pursue fraud charges. Marcus was ordered to repay all the stolen money, not just to me, but to the credit card company and the insurance company too. His lawyer quietly mentioned that criminal charges were being discussed. Identity theft, insurance fraud, The district attorney's office was reviewing the case. Marcus could face jail time if they decided to prosecute. I watched him sitting there with his head in his hands, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No revenge. Just quiet relief that it was over. That I'd documented everything. That I'd trusted my gut instead of his lies. Diana shook my hand outside the courtroom. "You did everything right," she said. "Most people wait too long. You collected evidence and acted decisively." The aftermath happened faster than I expected. Marcus's employer launched their own investigation into company resources. The storage unit, it turned out, had been paid for with his corporate credit card. So were some of the trips with Brielle, disguised as business expenses. He was fired within 2 weeks of the court judgment. His LinkedIn profile disappeared. His professional reputation was destroyed. And Brielle? She'd vanished completely. Deleted her social media. Moved out of the apartment. I heard through mutual friends that she wanted nothing to do with the scandal. Marcus tried to reach out through friends. Through his family. Through people at church who thought I should forgive him. But I'd built boundaries now. Strong ones. Unbreakable ones. My Aunt Rachel helped me change my locks. Update my passwords. Set up alerts on my credit. We went through every account and every document to make sure there were no other surprises waiting. And for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. Not because I'd won, but because I was finally free. The house felt bigger without him. Quieter. I painted the bedroom a soft blue. Rearranged the furniture. Started taking morning walks again. Small steps toward becoming myself again. One morning, 3 months after everything was finalized, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me open it. "I never thought you'd actually leave." That was all it said. No apology. No explanation. Just surprise that I'd had the strength to walk away. Like he'd been so confident in his ability to manipulate me that my freedom was impossible to imagine. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell him exactly how much he'd underestimated me. To explain that his biggest mistake wasn't the affair, it was thinking I was too weak to fight back. But I didn't need to explain anything to Marcus anymore. He wasn't my problem. He wasn't my responsibility. He was just a chapter I'd closed. I deleted the message without replying. Blocked the number. And went back to the life I was building. Because that message was his closure, not mine. He needed to understand. I just needed to keep moving forward. I signed a new lease for an apartment downtown. Smaller than the house, but mine. Completely mine. The lease was only in my name. The security deposit came from my personal account. Every piece of furniture I bought was chosen by me, for me. My freelance business was growing again. Clients I'd neglected during my marriage started coming back. New projects filled my calendar. I raised my rates and people paid them without question. Turned out, when you're not questioning your worth every day, other people value you more too. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how I'd lost myself. How I'd let someone make me doubt reality. How I'd stayed so long in a situation that hurt me. The therapist helped me see patterns I'd missed. Helped me build strategies for trusting myself again. Some nights were hard. Loneliness felt heavy, but it was different from the loneliness I'd felt in my marriage. This loneliness was clean, honest, not weighed down by lies and betrayal and constant performance. Rachel visited often. We cooked together, watched movies, talked about everything and nothing. She never said "I told you so," even though she'd quietly worried for years. I'm telling this story now from my own living room. My apartment. My space. The walls are covered with my artwork. Designs I created without anyone telling me they weren't good enough. Without anyone dismissing my dreams as hobbies. There's no chaos here. No yelling, no lies. Just quiet stability and the sound of my own thoughts. I drink my coffee in the morning without checking anyone's location. I go to bed without wondering where someone else is. I live without performing. People ask if I regret staying as long as I did. If I wish I'd left sooner. The truth is, I left exactly when I was ready. When I had the evidence, the plan, and the strength. Leaving earlier might have meant leaving weaker, less prepared. The messages weren't old. Marcus had lied about that, but I'd told myself lies too. That things would get better, that I was imagining problems, that questioning him meant I was broken. Those lies kept me trapped longer than his affair did. And neither was my strength. My strength wasn't old. It wasn't worn out. It had always been there, waiting for me to trust it, waiting for me to choose myself. That's what I learned from all of this. The timestamps don't lie. Trust what you see, trust what you know, and trust yourself enough to act on it. Because the truth, even when it hurts, is always better than living in someone else's lies.